Hi, I'm Dick Wagner with the Crest Network, and this morning we're going to be talking about marketing by storytelling. The entire concept of, advance here, the entire concept of storytelling in the marketing world is for the very, very obvious reason. You want more referrals. Just how it works. You want more referrals. And ladies, would you go ahead and mute yourselves there? Just to cut down on the background noise. So the big secret to successful communication, to successful persuasion, and ultimately successful engagement is to be a good storyteller or a good storyteller. Even kids, and I have a picture of a teacher with kids here, but I have a 9-year-old and an 8-year-old grandson, and shockingly enough, my 3-year-old granddaughter can come home and at the dinner table, they can recite almost word for word the stories that they were told in their school. The little one, the 3-year-old, goes to a preschool, but they're really good about telling her stories that are applicable. They might be stories about sharing or stories about animals or other things. And yet they'll sit at the table and they'll recite darn near word for word what the teacher has told them in that story. They retain stories. Well, that's true with adults as well. They are more curious. They put you more top of mind. They remember what you told them better when you make it in story form. A big myth, this is going back 15, 20, 25, 30 years ago. Marketing used to be all about creating a myth and then selling it. Well, that's what the salesperson did many years ago. They took a myth or something that they conjured up about their product or their service, and then they sold that concept. But we are in a new world today, and they don't embrace myths. What they might know is a myth, but they don't embrace them. They embrace the facts. The fact is a truth. And so now, moving into the 2015, 2017 period of time, as the consumer attitudes have changed, the public attitudes have changed, it's now about finding a truth within the product or service that you offer and then sharing that truth. You can have a bucket of water and you can't force the horse to drink. But if you make them curious enough, they will drink. It's about, in your case as marketers, it's about making your audience thirsty. When you lead them to the water, if you've made them thirsty, they're going to drink your Kool-Aid. Okay? Successful brands today don't provide information. They don't provide a list of the products or services or features that they offer or are available to them. It's not about that. Successful brands today are think about FedEx. Here's the FedEx driver holding the package up above the deep snow, and he's delivering. So the concept or the tagline that says, whatever it takes, that's appealing to your emotion. At Christmas time, when you get jolly old Saint Nick drinking a Coca-Cola, and their entire theme is all about happiness. Or the Target commercial where the goofy looking dog has a spot around one eye. It's really the target. And it's those commercials with Target are intended to appeal to your emotion, because it is all about emotion. People today buy based on emotion. There are wants versus needs. We buy what we want because of love or pride or guilt or out of fear, or maybe we buy because we're greedy. Do you necessarily need the Mercedes SUV? Not necessarily. Do you want it? Okay, sure. Okay. You buy what you want. You buy based on emotion. We recently bought a new vehicle and we wanted a red one. That's based on emotion. We wanted red. Why did we want red? Because no other neighbor in our development has a red car. We wanted to be different. So that difference was based on an emotional need. I didn't need a red car. The red wasn't going to serve what I needed. It's purely serving what I want. When it's a red car in the driveway and nobody, as far as the eye can see in either direction in my neighborhood, has a red vehicle. Okay. Almost everything that we buy is because we want it. It's all about emotion, and I'm repeating this because I really want this to stick in your head. Your client makes a decision to, I'm going to call it buy, but actually it's refer you to a job. They make the decision to refer you based on some emotional factor that you need to help create and figure out what that is. They don't sit there, the plumber, and logic out. Let's see, if I refer them, this is going to be good for me. It's going to be good for my client. It's going to be good for my plumbing customer. It's going to be good for my boss. They don't go through that logical, analytical process. They make the decision on whether they're going to refer you a plumbing loss based on emotion. And that emotion might even be tied in part to the $200 or $300 that you give them in a referral fee. People buy because they want what they want. And since it's about emotion, your brand, whatever that is, generally people watching this are restoration contractors and marketers, your brand has to answer 4 key questions. Not that you're going to repeat every single time and tell them about that, but in the back of your head, you should think about the fact that you do what is promised and what nobody else promises. You have to have a promise and make them aware of it, and nobody else is making that promise. And that's really tough to do in today's market, in our world, because we all go through a similar process of sucking up the water, drying out the facility, and then sometimes putting it back. So you've got to have a promise that nobody else generally does. That makes you stand alone. You have to deliver on something that nobody else can easily deliver on. You have to believe that only you believe it. It might even be that my people and my staff and my technicians are some of the best in the marketplace in restoration. You have to believe that. If you don't believe that, you're in the wrong position, and maybe in the wrong job. In a world of abundance, what we offer that is scarce makes all the difference in the world. You've probably heard the idea that scarcity raises the price. Scarcity makes people want it more. Think about this. During the COVID period, toilet tissue paper, other paper products, they were in short supply. They were in demand. People bought them and hoarded them. They were being a roll or a case of toilet paper was being sold on eBay for $100. You know, come on. See? It was a scarce commodity at that point, and people were scrambling to get it. Think fast forward to a more recent situation. Baby formula. There was a period of time, less than a year ago, when my daughter, who has some little babies over there that she fosters, she needed formula, and the formula just wasn't readily available on the store shelves like it has always been. And so in combination with the Foster Foundation that I work with, and in combination with my wife, who, when she would go to the store and see maybe one can of what was needed on the shelf, she would grab it up because it was scarce. The more you can make your service scarce, the more they want it. And you're going to say, well, how do I make it scarce and try to get them to do business with me? They might just go to somebody else. That's because you've got to be able to deliver on your promises, believe what you believe, and appeal to their emotion. It's far better to specialize and limit what you are an expert in. Think about this. You're going to need a heart replacement, or you're going to need cardiac surgery. You don't look up in the phone book in the yellow pages or on the internet and go, oh, geez, here's a cardiologist. He's really cheap. He's cardiologist economy. We don't do that. We don't want an economy or cheap cardiologist. We want the best. We want to go to Cleveland Clinic or Mayo for those kinds of things. We don't want cheap. And the more specialized they are, the higher the price they can pay. We've got clients right now that are charging $7,000 or $8,000 or $9,000 average for a residential water loss. Why? Because they're doing things to demonstrate that they have specialized in just that. They don't do 30 different services within their organization. They do a very limited few. Okay? They don't do packouts. They don't do much construction or recon. They're very, very limited. If you are trying to be an expert in everything, and I have worked with clients that were like that, you're not credible and you're not believable. You can't, nobody can be an expert in everything. I would love to be able to have the knowledge and help people with coaching on business finances and on processes and procedures. But I can't do that. That is not my wheelhouse. That's not within my capabilities. Bill Giannone, who are a partner and co-founder of the Crest Network, he's an expert in that. And that's why our clients work each week with him, and the marketers work each week with me. The goal is to make them thirsty, make them want what you have to offer. Here are some features that are probably accurate about your particular company. They're true, but they don't really sell. It is true that you offer 24/7, 365 emergency response. That's true, and most restoration contractors do. It's true that you have X number of technicians on staff, whether that's 2 or 25. It's true that hopefully you have a live operator on duty, some real person answering the phone around the clock, 7 days a week. It might be true that you've been locally owned since whatever that time period is, 1980, 1985, 1990. It might be true that you have, tongue-in-cheek here, the Binford 5000 Super Sucker. You have the latest and greatest and the newest and the coolest that can suck up the water in their home. It is probably true that you do fire, water, smoke, and even mold remediation. But think about this. It says we do fire, and I have heard marketers or I have heard owners say, yeah, we do fire and water. What do you do with it? Do you play with it? Do you pour water on the fire? Do you pour water on the carpet? Do you go around lighting matches? What do you do with water or fire? It doesn't make any logical sense. And then I have clients, they're very proud of the fact that they are either triple masters with the IICRC, or they have a IICRC staff employee, and so they can qualify to be an IICRC company as well. The crazy part about that is that most insurance companies, most adjusters, most insurance agents, most plumbers, most anybody that you do business with does not know what IICRC stands for. And shockingly enough, those people that have a WRT or an ASD or some other certification with the IICRC, I've asked them in class. Some of you have been in my classes. I've asked them, anybody here, by showing your hand, who can tell me what the acronym IICRC stands for? I can tell you, I can have 30 people in a class, and nobody knows the answer. You see a whole bunch of people, grabbing their phone and Googling IICRC, but they don't know what it stands for. Institute of Inspection, Cleaning, and Restoration Certification. I recommend that you tell a story using the benefits of your service. We are here for you. Here are some examples of how you can use or talk about your benefits. We're here for you. Weekends, holidays, or the middle of the night. That is opposed to, 24/7, 365. That's pretty generic, and everybody says that. But when you say, we're here for you, weekends, holidays, or the middle of the night. That makes it believable, and it's really talking about an emotional benefit. We have, rather than saying you have 6 guys on staff, rather than saying you have 36 guys on staff, if you say we have crews ready to spring into action to help you with your disaster or help you recover from your disaster, that is an emotional comment. Immediately, we're going to respond to your disaster in the middle of the night. You don't have to leave a voicemail on a recording machine at 3 in the morning and then find out that you never get a call back until 8 the next morning. We don't make you leave a voicemail. We have a live person ready to take your call. In our organization, rather than saying we've been here since 1985 or whatever the year, when you say something about your organization, about they've been around a long time, and we have a proven track record. We have proven ourselves over. I've got a client immediately that I can think of that started in business in 1989 or 1999. He's been in business 24 years. He has proven himself. He's had 2 lawsuits in that period of time, and he's won them both. Okay. We have professional equipment to help reduce your costs and your downtime. That sounds better than telling them you just bought the latest Binford Super Sucker. That doesn't even mean anything to them. We, in a commercial situation, we help you get back to business quickly by recovering quickly from that disaster. That's appealing to their emotion, getting back in business quickly. And we have, instead of IICRC, we have skilled and trained people to do it right the first time, removing your worries. Those, 6, 7 key benefits are appealing to their emotion. Stories, you should be telling stories that you actually personally know about. That's why we recommend, in this case, Brooke and Morgan, that you ride with a technician out on an emergency disaster job. Same way with Greg, or the guys at Reliable have done that same thing. Almost all of my clients send their marketer, especially their new marketers, out to ride with supervisors and technicians on jobs because they get to see a disaster restoration personally, up front, in their face. They're often, one of the marketers I was talking to the other day says she carries a set of boots, big rubber knee-high boots, in her car, in her trunk, so that when she runs into that situation, she can put her boots on and go into a flooded home. They need to, your stories, if they're real and they're credible and they're moving and they're compelling, that's going to be very meaningful to what you're trying to convey in an emotion. It's going to be very meaningful to even show your personal side. I wasn't at this picture on the left, but Greg, you might recognize it. I believe that's the Gaylord. And the Gaylord, as you know, back in, I think it was 2012. Yes. When was it?
2010.
2010. Okay. Got it. My wife and I were at the Gaylord prior to the flood and stayed there. And then my wife and I were at a conference there after the flood, after it was cleaned and rebuilt. That's a multi-million-dollar loss. I know one of the guys that was involved in the drying of that facility, and he can tell some incredible stories about that. But for now, mine is limited to this little redheaded boy on the right. Yeah, we can't help but call him Red as a nickname. His real name is Noah. But I can talk about Noah personally because I know him personally. He runs around the house saying, Peepa, Peepa, which is what I'm called. That's an emotional situation. He's one of 4 foster children that my daughter fosters during, all the time, 24/7. And he's just a brilliant little 1.5-year-old. He's a lot of fun. Okay. And my daughter does foster 3 others as well that are 1-year-old, 2 years old, 3 years old, and 4 years old. No, they're not related really, but I can talk about if you have a situation like that. Brooke, you have a newborn. Okay, it's easy to talk about that newborn. Your predecessor, after she had her baby, she took little Leo around to all of her clients and introduced little Leo to all of her clients. That was a very personal, emotional situation, added human credibility to that particular marketer. So don't be afraid to do that. Creating the story, in creating that story, I want you to tell moving, incredible, and compelling stories. I just told you generally a compelling story about Noah, little redhead. Okay. When you tell credible and moving stories, they're probably in we've done tests on this, or Harvard University has done tests or surveys, and found that people like you more and care for you more and want to do business with you more if the stories that you tell are credible and believable and personal. Okay. And memories versus stories. This is important. I just told you that the little foster children that sit here in my house at supper time, because my wife doesn't cook. My daughter doesn't cook, so my wife does. And so we have 11 kids around our supper table every night, or 11 people. And they'll sit there and they'll recite stories. 2 of them go to a Christian Bible church, and they'll tell stories about Noah, not the Noah that I just showed you, or they'll tell you stories about Samson and Goliath, or they'll tell you stories about Jesus walking on the water, or the little one, the 3-year-old, will tell you stories that she learned in daycare about things that we say, how can she possibly remember those kinds of details? But stories are memorized because they're easy to remember. Every one of us can remember the story of the 3 little pigs. We can all remember the story of Goldilocks. We can all remember the stories of Little Red Riding Hood. The fact is, we remember a lot of details when it's a compelling story, and we forget easily lists, statistics, numbers, and instructions. I can't tell you how many times when I do as a guy, read instructions, I got to step 3 and I couldn't remember what the next step was. So I would get disgusted and frustrated, and I would bring my wife in to read the instructions for me. And she has that patience and tolerance to do that, and I don't. We can't remember names and phone numbers or word for word instructions, but we have an awesome visual and spatial recall. I'm going to give you an example. Rational, logical, or conscious thought is not a major part of the buying decision. Let's take a one we're all familiar with, Heinz ketchup. Well, the facts are, and these are rational and logical facts, the facts are they were founded in Sharpsburg. The facts are that they enjoy number 1 or number 2 market share in their product line. Number 3, they are representing the top 15 power brands that account for 95% of their sales. Another key fact, they sell over 650 million bottles of ketchup each year. Maybe that's a lot of tomatoes. I didn't know this. They have 5,700 products that Heinz produces worldwide. And last but not least, Heinz is a responsible corporate citizen. How much of that I just listed, those 6 things, how much of that means anything to you? How much of that do you really care? How much of that you heard me say motivates you to want to buy ketchup? Probably none. Okay. But if you make it emotional, we're going to buy ketchup. It just so happens that I grew up not too far from the Heinz ketchup factory, and they made sauerkraut. And believe me, in the summertime when they were making sauerkraut, it stunk terrible. But if you make it emotional, it's going to be a lot more meaningful. It's going to bring that product or service to top of mind. Think about this: a sizzling hamburger or a hot dog, or a steaming hot container of French fries with ketchup, Heinz ketchup, ever so slowly dripping out of the end of the bottle. Is that not mouth-watering? Does that make you want to buy Heinz ketchup? Of course it does. They've done those commercials. They sang the song in the background, Anticipation. Whoever, I forget the author of that, or the Bill Giannone would know, but they use that song as the background for that. It's not enough to offer a useful product. If you're going to clean up or remediate mold, or you're going to suck up water and dry their building, that's useful, but that isn't what's completely required. You have to have a story or some sort of a legend built into it, because that adds credibility and believability to you and your company. It has to embody the values beyond the basic function or utility. Hey, we suck up water. Hey, we dry your house. That's just basic function or utility. You have to capture the emotion. That's where the decision is mostly made. And then right down here, I have brand storytelling. In other words, storytelling about your restoration services is not about you. It's about what you help your customer accomplish. You should have at least 5 key pieces to your story. You should try to make sure that they entertain, that they engage or connect with the client, so there's some meaningful connection there. Your story should stir their emotions. It has to seem genuine, otherwise you have zero credibility and zero trust. And if you have zero credibility and zero trust, you got nothing. And it has to make them thirsty. Making them thirsty makes you top of mind for them. It makes you a maven or a trusted advisor in their mind. And remember, this is a simple thing. People buy from people. They don't buy from companies. They're not going to buy from your restoration company. They're going to buy from you, or they're going to buy from your boss, or they're going to buy for the technician that does the closing of the job. They're not buying from the company. The company may factor into it, but they're really buying from the person or the people. People buy from people. Guys, this is a new rule book in today's world. Since about 2016, 2017, 2018, somewhere in there, and certainly when COVID started, the world changed. At least the world of the United States people, their culture, their attitudes, their preferences changed. And so that changed the game that we're in. And on top of that, not only did the game change, but the rules to the game changed. It would kind of be like playing a baseball game, but using a football as the ball instead of a baseball. There wouldn't be there is no sense to that. And it would be foolish for you to try to do that. I think you need to learn the new rules, the new rule book, and how that game has changed and how you have to play in that new world. And certainly since about 2019, absolutely the world has changed. Real simple example of that is many of my marketers could only get, for the last 3 years, they could only get in front of their clients by way of Zoom. I always did my marketing calls by phone for years and years and years and years. And now today I found when I was forced to use Zoom to interact better with them, I found that Zoom is a much more preferable mode than just a cold phone call. And face-to-face in person is the gold standard, if you were wondering. Face-to-face on a Zoom call is the next standard. So I want to quickly recap. Storytelling is successful communication. It's about finding a truth and then sharing that truth. It's using words that help them visualize your story. Remember that stories are better than lists. You can think about a list of 10 different items on a sheet, and this has been proven over and over again, or you can tell a story that includes those 10 items in it. The people that only had to memorize the list could remember 3 or 4 of them. People that heard the story with those 10 items in it remembered 9 out of the 10. That's a big deal. You have to tell stories that are emotional, that meet their emotional psyche. And remember that it's an absolutely new playbook. It's a new rule book. You have to follow different rules in order to achieve that. And on behalf of Bill Giannone, the other co-founder of the Crest Network, who is ensconced up in Atlanta, I appreciate all of you joining, and I'm going to get this, or it is being recorded. I'm going to get it saved to YouTube, and I will send you a copy of it for you to watch. Oddly enough, our videos and our podcasts are huge. They've been used a lot. You know, we're not a Joe Rogan, but our podcasts, according to a report we just got the other day, says that we've had 500 downloads of our podcasts. And that's an incredible milestone, considering Bill and I have only been doing these for maybe barely a year or so. So I hope you will go on Spotify or on the Crest Network website and listen to many of those podcasts. Bill has some incredible podcasts on there, and I have some as well. Thank you so much. I'm Dick Wagner. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.